Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 21st of May. Well, it was a lackluster Friday. I mean, we've been ebbing down here on the shakeout back towards the zero line. We've been pretty soft with our readings, but we haven't broken down at all. And that's been key. There's just been a subtle support lying underneath there. It's more problematic for shorts because when you get that kind of basing setup, it doesn't take much of a catalyst to force short covering. That propels things. We've had the beautiful EBMs to work with going through here. We had a little bit of the surprise announcement that the trade deal, well, not even, I guess you could call it a trade deal, but a lack of tariffs is probably a better description, won't be put on China, and that caused a huge spike in futures to start the day. It means no trade war, at least so the perception is. I don't know that there ever was going to be, but it's not like that was really priced into anything. From an NQ standpoint, again, likewise, the same, and that's pretty consistent flatness, but much stronger than the ES, without question. And this could be the catalyst to spark the next little pop-up, which we kind of talked about. In Italy, the five-star group put together their coalition, which has promised guaranteed income as well as potential obstinance or, I guess, conflict with the EU in general. So that is going to certainly put some pressure on the euro as the factions that want to break up or separate from the EU are growing, not shrinking, which is exact opposite of the model that they're hoping for. So when you combine potential Italy, Greece, it puts more systemic problems. Plus, you've not had the interest in the Fed in backstopping the euro any longer because of the U.S. growth, and the movement there is not necessary to support businesses with higher euro, given the fact that Eurozone growth isn't anywhere near where U.S. growth is. And this gets into that whole issue of bonds. It's a pretty dramatic pop that took here, really not necessary because rates are going to start rising, and that's going to put some significant downside pressure on rates, particularly then when you get into the oil situation, inflation built in. There's some things that the Fed can do, but they're now into the, quantitative tightening, which also raises rates by attempting to pull in the liquidity of all that quantitative easing they've done. The problem with that is if you do it too fast and try to slow the U.S. down, the reality is the U.S. economy has to move faster than the world economy, and then the world economy will start to generate and catch up, supporting the already robust production from the U.S. And so it's an important dynamic. And so if the Fed reacts too soon and starts to cool or dampen enthusiasm in the U.S. by raising rates, it puts more pressure on foreign economies. And so it's a delicate balancing act. And whether the new chairman gets it or not, we'll see. I have not had much faith in the last couple of them. They've not done very well as far as at least managing growth. The idea of managing no growth isn't really that complicated. The formula is pretty straightforward for that one, and they did a good job of that, but the problem is people suffered during no growth periods. Oil, moving back up, you're starting to see the headlines of rising gas, especially going into summer. Will that have a dampening effect? Not likely. It's more likely to just create more of a inflationary buildup that's going to take place in food and some of the other things that, aren't really counted when it comes to inflation category, which go figure. I mean, the things you actually buy, they don't count for inflationary purposes, but that's all right. Gold, this should start to become the beginning of a turn for gold back to the upside as some of this stuff starts to. Now, of course, I've always said gold's a much longer play than quick trades. We're not seeing anything from a quick standpoint. This is a pretty ugly shakeout. Everything else here is pretty beat up from the extreme histogram, and there's not a whole lot of activity on the DOC at this particular point either. It's just one of those things that it's a reserve store of value, much like the concept here with the Bitcoin. It's a store of value, theoretical. Bitcoin's just got one hurdle. It needs to transition to like gold, which can also be used for jewelry and or a variety of other actual economic activities. Now here we had the day. It wasn't that much of a day. Friday was just sort of kind of had a little teeny pop that was unable to really do much, couldn't even get past 76%, and then pretty much stayed flat. We had a couple little pops, and then we went into just a sideways middle action, all right around this 50%. So this was a nice, what I call accumulation day, because you're just sucking up, and every time things pop, get sold off a little bit, and someone's buying up all that supply, because we kept seeing pretty decent DOC red readings in that we weren't getting any extreme oversolds to the point where we were seeing significant distribution, and that certainly was indicated right here. We started to get the dip down of the orange below the green and all that right before the close, and then boom, by the time we opened up the bar, all the way up, and now it's been easing back because it's all incredibly overbought in there, and you're going to have to fill in a portion of that, at least back to, I would think, the highs right there, which they've already done. So it doesn't necessarily have to be more, but when you get that kind of move, people often want to fill back in. The pressure is, though, that by the time the open comes by, they're going to want to keep it somewhat elevated just to force any weak shorts to have to cover to see if that can propel it and sustain the move. So it's where we're at this particular point. Nothing too dramatic to report other than that nice solid bounce move. I think it played in well with the MBI Opus. Was long from the Iron Hawk right there. What value is that? 2709. So not much of a move since that entry. We're 27.27. That'll be close to profit mode very shortly there. And the little pop-up. As always, though, trade well, and I'll put up any relevant charts on the Skype chat. We'll talk soon.